Imagine having to get up hours before everyone else does, knowing that you're going to try on every outfit you own until it feels just right. Imagine having to wash your hands so much to the point where you become ashamed at the sight of them from how cracked and raw they have become. Imagine having to avoid numbers to the point where you're failing your math class. It is estimated that 3,500,000 Americans have obsessive compulsive disorder, otherwise known as OCD. I have OCD, and I know firsthand the lack of understanding there is for this special condition and the special exceptions that we sometimes need. Obsessive compulsive disorder comes from two components, obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are unwanted ideas or impulses thought by someone consistently. For example, counting numbers all the time. Compulsions are behaviors that you feel they must be followed through with. For example, cleaning or washing their hands. People with OCD feel they must follow through with their urges or they're letting themselves down. It can cause anxiety, stress, fear, depression, or exhaustion. Obsessive compulsive disorder was first discovered in 1963 by Dr. Neil Bogason. Since then, it's been shortened to OCD and has had thorough and intense research done on it. OCD has had several severe cases done on it, and some of them can come in between school, work, relationships, and so on. 1 in 40 people have OCD that is severe enough to get in the way of what they do every day. 10% of our population has OCD, but it doesn't really affect what they do. 12.5% of our population will deal with OCD at some point. While OCD can appear to be harmless at times, there are people who have it at a dangerously high level. There was one case done on a woman who had just had a baby. She had loved it just like most newborn mothers would, but as time went on, she started envisioning herself stabbing the baby. She became afraid that she would injure those around her as well. She didn't want to, but OCD can do terrible things to one's mind, and if left unattended, it can cause self-bodily harm to yourself or others. It can not only cause physical harm, but mental as well. As Publius Cyrus once said, "Pain of mind is worse than pain of body." Not only have serious cases been reported, but also many false conceptions as well. Some might include neat freak or germophobia. Other sayings can include, "If you like organizing, then you must be OCD." "Your house is so clean, you must have OCD." Or, "Who has Twitter anymore? This is just for people with OCD who want to post what they do every 3 seconds." These are all false. The one that I'd say gets to me the most would have to be, a person with OCD can just stop anytime they wanted to. Trust me, if I could stop, I would have 8 years ago. Not only is it irritating to hear these misconceptions, but it can also be harmful. If you tell someone to stop with their OCD, it can make them feel like they're being annoying or irritating or that they're doing everything wrong, and it can completely set them off. By now you're probably wondering how this would relate back to me. Since I was 4 years old, I've been doing little patterns, as I've called them, every day. When I was 4, I would take all my shoes and my parents' shoes and arrange them in a straight line from biggest to smallest. Or sometimes I would take my toys and do all the same thing to them while I was watching TV. It didn't really bother me at the time, it was just something that I felt like I needed to do. When I got older, it was in the 1st or 2nd grade, that's when things started to go downhill. I was never a defiant child by any means, but my patterns sometimes kept me from doing things. For example, when my teacher asked me to change the date on the calendar, I couldn't do it because it was to an odd number. I had a thing with even numbers, and, well, I didn't like odd numbers at all, so I couldn't do it, and I couldn't follow her directions. As I got older, my parents noticed, and we realized that this was becoming an issue. I was taken to a general practitioner who recommended me to a psychiatrist who told me I have OCD. I was referred back, then ended up where I am now at a psychologist. Since I've been going there, things have improved somewhat. It's still difficult for me to look at numbers because when I see numbers, maybe on the board or on my phone, I add them up and have to divide them by 3. I've done this for a while now, and I'm trying to help and improve it, but I've been prescribed many different medications, but they've either resulted in anger issues or lack of willing to try in schoolwork. Medication hasn't been the best for me so far, but there's other ways around it that I know I can find. Sadly, there's no permanent cure for this disorder. There's only various medications that might help control it, but it will never be cured, just hopefully manageable. Some diversions techniques that I learned that have helped me are maybe using a stress ball or just fiddling with a special bracelet, journaling, using rescue remedies, and just talking about it to people. Talking to a psychologist has helped me as well. They don't prescribe medicine, but they help distract with diversion techniques. There is no cure for OCD because it has to do with damage being done to a special part of the brain called the basal ganglia. Basically, whenever the brain is in its hyper mode with all the thoughts going on inside of it, it goes into a brain lock. The basal ganglia is locked in with other parts of the brain known as the cortex, the substantia, the nigra, rostral, raphe nucleus, and the thalamus. I'm fully aware that my OCD will never be fully treated. Every day is a struggle for me, whether it's counting numbers, focusing in the room, or anything else. I also know that there are people with OCD that's far worse than mine, possibly even in this room. But all that I ask is for a better understanding. All that I ask is for a little sympathy when needed. All I ask from you is